Now, the character that we are going to be drawing in this class, again, is a character in honor of our D100 celebration. Here at the Animation Academy, we handpicked a bunch of different characters from different decades of the Walt Disney Company. And for this class, we're going to be focusing on my favorite era, the 90s. And so for this character, we're going to be visiting the Pride Lands. We're drawing a little young lion cub who just can't wait to be king.
Oh, wow.
So shout it out, folks, who we're drawing today. Simba, yes. Do I have any new timers here at the Animation Academy? Never been before? Quite a few of you. Welcome to your
pay
first
attention
class.
time.
And welcome back to all my alumni as well. But for my new timers here though, you might have noticed that your pencils are missing an eraser. That's because here at the Academy we draw in a style called rough sketching. What that means is we're going to be starting off by drawing very light, really rough and sketchy. And as we start to get in those details, we're going to go back in later to start getting in the lines that we want to keep. With all that being said though, are you folks ready to draw a lion today? Yeah! Excellent. Now to get started with our portrait of Simba, he's going to start with a basic shape, and his shape's going to be a circle here. And so right at the middle of our paper, we want to draw in a circle, I'd say about the size of a baseball, or an orange is a good size here as well. And as you can see here, I'm keeping the circle very light, really rough and sketchy. Just really building up my circle with lots and lots of curved lines, really blending all these lines together to make one big shape. Now we're going to be drawing Simba in what we call a side profile. So he's going to be looking towards the left side of our paper here. And so we're going to go about halfway down our circle, and we're going to stretch across a flat line here, bringing this over to the left-hand side of our paper. So right now it should look like we have the epic sunrise from the beginning of the film sitting on our paper. And now that we've got our guideline in place, we do want to build up a foundation for his snout as well as his ear here. And so I'm going to build up his snout first by going from the left-hand side of my circle, and just above my guideline here, I'm going to stretch down just a very short diagonal line, bringing this to the end of that line here. Now from that guideline, we're going to follow that same curve of our circle, just stretching down this really big letter C. And from the bottom of our letter C, we can close off the bottom of his jaw by just lightly connecting this to our circle with a stretched out letter E. And now that we've built up the front of his face, to build up Simba's ear next, we're going to go to the right side of our circle now, and a little ways from the top here, I'm going to build up the top of his ear first by stretching out a rainbow, curving this off to the right-hand side of my paper now. And from the end of this rainbow, we'll close off the side of back of his ear by following that same letter C of our circle. And as we pass our guideline about halfway down here, we can close off the bottom of his ear now by just stretching in a letter U, bringing this right back into our circle. And this will give us our basic foundation for Simba, but right now it looks nothing like him. With this foundation in place, the first feature we do want to work on for him is going to be his ear here. Now Simba has this very detailed ear to him, and so we're going to add in the upper fold of his ear first by going on our guideline, and we're going to add in what we call an S curve here. And so I'll lightly sketch this so you can see this, but this is really just a curvy letter S that we're going to bring to the tip of his ear here in the backhand side. And once you got this letter S in place, about halfway up that letter S, we want to stretch up a little rainbow here on the inside. So now we turned our letter S into this curvy, I like to think of it as a letter Y there. Now when it comes to the color of his ear, this back portion is a darker brown to the inside of his ear here. And so we want to go from the end of our letter Y, and we're going to add in a letter C curve right on the inside. And as we reach our guideline, we can close this off at the bottom by just stretching out a very subtle letter U. Now on the inside of his ear, he does have a couple of hairs that poke out here. And so you want to go on the inside of this shape and just add in 3 little quick flicks of the pencil right on the inside. Now when Disney was working on The Lion King, when it came to coming up with a working title for this film, they originally wanted to call this movie King of the Jungle. But as they were doing their research, they realized that lions don't live in the jungle. And so to keep the title nice and simple, they decided just to go with the Lion King. So now that we've got all those details in place for his ear here, now's the time for us to really start focusing on the front of his face. And so we want to go ahead and give Simba his nose next by going over to our rectangle here on the left-hand side. And from this top left corner, I'm going to go about a quarter of the way down, and we're going to carve into our shape here, drawing in just a very subtle letter U. Now, since we're seeing Simba in a side profile, we're only going to see half of his nose from this angle here. And so we want to go to that top left corner of our rectangle, and on the inside, you want to stretch down a little rainbow. And our lion cub does need to be able to breathe here. And so to give Simba a little nostril, on the inside of his nose, you want to add in a small little rainbow on the inside. And since we are seeing the inside of that nostril, you're also more than welcome to go back in here, really shade this in nice and soft as well. And so now that we've got his nose in place, we want to go ahead and give Simba what we call an open mouth or laughing smile. Really make him this really happy lion cub. And so we're going to go right back to that top left corner of our rectangle, and we're going to carve into our shape here by bringing down a little hill about halfway down. And so once you've brought down this letter C curve there, we'll close off the upper part of his jaw by bringing up a letter U and just stretching this to that left-hand side of our circle. And from that letter U, to open up his lower jaw, we're going to stretch down one more little hill. And so this negative space should look like a little sideways shark fin kind of sitting there. And from the shark fin, we can close off the bottom of his jaw by just bringing another curve down to that very light rectangle. And you just want to pick out your favorite line here to the bottom and go ahead and darken this in here too. With his mouth open like this, we are going to be seeing a little tooth kind of poking out from that lower jaw. And so you want to add in this very rounded shark fin, think little candy corn for his tooth here. And really make sure that you keep that tooth really nice and round. We don't want to give Simba any sharp points or angles. We save those sharp points and angles more for our villainous characters. And Simba's no villain. No, he's not like his Uncle Scar. Speaking of his Uncle Scar, he was voiced by the very talented Jeremy Irons. A pretty wild thing about his role in this film, though, is that when he was recording his song Be Prepared, at the end of the song, when Scar goes, "You won't get a sniff out of me," when Jeremy Irons was recording that line in particular, he actually ruined his voice, and he couldn't finish the rest of the song. And so they actually had another voice actor come in, a man named Jim Cummings, who also voices Ed the Hyena in this film. And he's also known for also voicing Winnie the Pooh as well. And so if you go back and listen to Be Prepared, right after that sniff out of me, you can very subtly tell the difference between the two voices. And with the tooth in place, when it comes to his fur color here, Simba is this bright golden yellow, but his snout here is actually a very light tan. And so to show that difference in the two tones there, we're going to go in between our circle, and we'll close this off now by adding in a letter S curve, just like how we added in that fold to his ear. And now that we've got that nice and dark, we want to go ahead and flatten out the front of Simba's head next. And so we're going to go to the left-hand side of our circle, and on the side here, we'll flatten this out now by stretching up a diagonal line. Bring this to the top of our original circle. And from the top of this line here, we can round out his head by just blending this in to the top of that original circle. Now, towards the back of Simba's head, he does have some hair. That kind of flares up at the top. And so to add in that hair of his, you want to go towards the back here. And you want to add in a couple of shark fins, some very thin blades of grass. And really feel free to add in as much of this hair as you'd like. What I find though is that if you give him one too many, he'll start to look like Kovu from The Lion King 2. But if you don't add in too many, then he'll start to look too soft, then you'll end up with Nala. So safe number, I'd say about 3 or 4 little hairs at the top of his head. So now that we've got his whole head shape in place, before we wake up Simba with his eye though, he has what we like to call a character mask. Really just this little mask that wraps around his eye here. And I like to do the shape of his mask as some really big egg shapes, or you can even think of these as an avocado as well. Ooh, an avocado. Thanks. I'm building up the top front of that character mask first. We're just building up this really big letter C. Then from the top of that letter C curve, we're going to stretch down another curve toward the back. And I'm going to leave just a little bit of space between that curve and that guideline. But to really give ourselves that avocado shape, just right between those 2 points here, we'll connect it together at the bottom with a stretched out letter U. With the shape of his mask in place, at the top of his mask, we do want to give Simba an eyebrow next. And so for that eyebrow, you just want to go to the top of this mask here and follow that curve a couple more times, really adding some thickness at the top. But Simba very much is a product of the 90s. He's going to have that pencil thin brow. You don't want to make this too thick. He's not about that 2023 life. Now, once you've got that eyebrow on point, when it comes to building up Simba's eye here, we're basically just drawing in that same shape, but about half the size this time. And so I'm going to go from that bottom left corner of his mask, build up the front of his eye first, stretching up a really big letter C. And we'll follow that same curve to the back here as well. Now when Disney was doing their research for The Lion King, when it came to a little research trip, they actually sent some of their artists to Kenya. And it was on this trip to Kenya where they studied a lot of the animals that they added in this film, studied their behavior and how they walked as well. Now, what I think is pretty wild is that on top of that research trip, they actually had a wildlife expert bring some of these animals into the studios. And these animals also included a lion cub, as well as a full-grown lion as well. So can you imagine being an artist during that time, just walking into work, suddenly big lion in the middle of the room? And so they definitely wanted to make sure that they captured the true essence of lions, really setting them up close and personal. And now that we've got the eye in place, we don't want to leave Simba like this though. Otherwise, he's going to look like he's seen some things. Like he probably just stepped out of the elephant graveyard again. And so to really wake him up with that pupil towards the front of his eye now, we want to draw in this very big oval sitting right here in the front. And since the eyes are really where we as the audience connect with our characters, I like to go back in, push down just a little bit harder on my pencil, and bring all of that attention and focus straight to the middle of his eye now. And now that we've got our lion cub nice and awake, there is a little bit of detail on the inside of his mask here. And so in that little corner, he does have this little triangle that separates his eye from that corner of the mask. And in the back corner here, I'll connect that together with a little diagonal line. Right now, he is looking like a little floating head, kind of sitting here on a paper. And to give Simba the back of his neck here, we're just going to go to the bottom of his ear, and we'll stretch down a little curve, firing this off to the right. And to finish up the front of his belly here, towards the bottom of his jaw, we'll add in one more curve here as well. And we do want to give Simba this very defined jawline, and so in that space between his ear and his jaw, you want to add in this sideways letter L from right between those 2 points. And once you've got that jaw in place, really the last details we need to add in are his whiskers here, right on the inside of his mouth. So, just 3 quick flicks of the pencil. 1, 2, 3. Instant lion cub. And once you've got that in place, that's going to be the last step that you need for your sketches of little Simba here. And so this is the time in your drawings when you want to go back in, do some touch-up work, darken in any lines that might have faded away in the drawing process and you'd love to stand out nice and dark here. If you do want to channel your inner Rafiki, what I like to do is take the side of my pencil, kind of rub some graphite to the top of his forehead, take my thumb and go, Simba. Once you've got all that in place, really the last mark any artist truly needs to leave on their work before it's complete though, are gonna be your signatures. So make sure you do find a spot somewhere next to your drawing here. And go ahead and sign big and proud, because you have just learned how to draw your very own portrait of Simba.